No. Let's go ahead and get started. Hello. Hello. Hey, good morning, everybody. Let's go ahead and get started. One. There we go. Hey, there we go. Good morning, everybody. Thank you very much. So I want to, on behalf of my colleagues at E3G, welcome you to the 2026 State of Climate Politics Forum. My name is Clarence Edwards. I'm the Executive Director for E3G in the United States and your host for this morning's event. Some practical issues first. The Met Office has issued an amber weather warning for extreme heat in London today. I think it's going to be about 38. To my American ears, that sounds like wintertime, but I know in Celsius is absolutely not wintertime. So it's really important for you to stay, you know this, but I'm going to tell you anyway. Stay hydrated. We have water for you outside. There's sodas, but it's really important to stay hydrated. Dehydration can sneak up on you, so be careful. Restrooms are one level down in case you need those after you're hydrating. It's ironic that this heat is joining us, not so much in the room, it feels cooler than last year, but the heat is the backdrop for the conversation we're going to have this morning about climate change and where we are with the politics of it, as I said. Today, we're going to learn about climate action from the local to global level. We'll hear from a new generation of climate leaders. We'll consider how to connect the energy transition to the lives and concerns of everyday people around the world, and hear thoughts on strengthening, rebuilding, and renewing international cooperation. We have an information-filled morning for you that we believe and we hope that you will find thought-provoking. We're going to get started right away here with our opening keynote on responding to the climate emergency, and that will be given by Ramon Mendez Galan, president of REN 21 and a former energy secretary of Uruguay. So if you join me up here, that would be great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning. It's a big honor for me to be here today to share my thoughts about the paradoxical moment that we are living now concerning the climate politics. Because on the one side, thanks to the climate efforts, we have developed new technologies in many areas, which are today more efficient, better, and even cheaper than the old ones. But at the same time, paradoxically, we are witnessing a setback of the climate ambition. And the energy sector is perhaps one of the best examples of that. So I will try to share this, to illustrate this with an example of what happened in my country, Uruguay, when many people are now calling the Uruguayan energy revolution, because in a short period of time, we went from about 50% share of fossil fuels in the power mix to only about 2% now. And this happened in only 5 years. Thank you. This is the power mix of 2024, when we reach an incredible share of 99.1% of a combination of different renewable sources, not only traditional hydro, but also half of that being new variable renewable energies. And this is to be compared with the world average, which is only about 30%. But what's more interesting that the fact that we proved that it is possible to share such a mix is that we reduce costs with that. Not only will we reduce, but we halve costs, which are now of the order of only 5 cents per kilowatt-hour generation cost. But even more important than reducing cost is stabilizing cost, because we don't suffer anymore those crazy fluctuations of energy commodity prices, because we are just dependent on our own domestic and free sources. We haven't witnessed any kind of impact of the war in Ukraine or the war in Iran so far. Not at all. We do not depend on that. And the benefits are no longer just for the energy sector, but for the whole economy. We created 50,000 new jobs in this transition. This is, for a small country like Uruguay, it's about 3% of the total labor force of the country. Make a calculation how much is 3% of the labor force of your country to see the impact for the economy. And we are also receiving incomes for the export of renewable energy surpluses to our two giant neighbors for us, which are Argentina and Brazil. Last but not least, this impact has allowed us to increase the energy border of the country, because today 99.9% of our country is electrified, of our houses are electrified. And of course, when we have such a power mix, the impacts are going just beyond the electricity sector. Because we take the primary mix, which means all the end users of the energy we can have, we are having today 63% of renewables in the mix, which is large compared to the world average, which is only 14%. In fact, we use, for example, biomass waste, which used to be a climate, environmental liability, and now is a energy asset. For example, in the industrial sector, where almost 80% of all the end-use energy used in the industrial sector is renewable. And we are only using oil as almost the only fossil fuel in the mix, and mainly all of that in the transport sector. And not for a long time, because last month, more than half of the new sold cars were EVs. So this is the possibility that you can have when you go to renewables in your grid. And your mix in general, in your power mix in general. I used to say that I'm a kind of decarbonized person because I use 99% renewable electricity at both home and office. I'm using air conditioning, heat pumps in order to heat my house. I'm using NEV and paying only $5 to fully charge my battery, and with that I can run 500 kilometers. This is the present technology we're having today in the world. And there's one single word I haven't mentioned so far, which is climate. I'm just talking about economic work, development. But of course, just by the way, a just energy transition is possible. This is what we prove. We prove that yes, it was possible to manage the variability of wind and solar, for example. Human engineering has succeeded to put a man in the moon 50 years ago. And they're trying to convince them that it was not possible to manage variability of wind and solar. Of course it is. It was not rocket science, it was complicated. But it was not rocket science. But not only is possible, but it is better. Once again, renewables are ripe to provide very extraordinary benefits at the national level, just beyond climate. Because I didn't mention climate. By the way, yes, our emissions, per capita emissions, at least in the power sector, are 40 times smaller than the world average. Yes, it is possible to decarbonize an economy. So the point is that today, what we are calling the renewable-based economy, the renewable development, is ready. They are ready to deliver. And this is even better and better as time is passing by, because only in the last 15 years, the most important renewable technologies, mainly wind offshore, solar PV, and batteries, they have decreased by tremendous amount. Solar PV decreased cost by 8 times. Wind by 3 times, and batteries 10 times lower cost than they used to be only 15 years ago. And today, which is interesting, is that wind onshore and solar, they are producing electricity at lower cost as any kind of fossil fuels. And this has happened in any place in the world, almost any place. Even in fossil fuel producer countries, even in those countries, wind and solar are the cheapest source of producing electricity today. So in fact, yes, today renewables, first of all, they allow a reliable and secure operation of energy system. In Uruguay, we have been running that for the last 10 years. If you have any doubt, someone tells you that is not possible, please ask him to pay a ticket plane. I pay the ticket plane. And they go to Uruguay to witness that this is happening really in our world. But on top of that, this reduced the cost of the systems. And even better, this reduced exposure to the geopolitical shocks that are witnessed today all over the world. And that, of course, beyond the fact that we are reducing the emissions in the sector. And this is even more and more important in these complicated moments that we are living today. But this is one side of the coin. The other side is that, in fact, we're not witnessing a really transition as we're expecting to happen. This is not happening at the pace we not only we expect because of climate change, but also that we expect because of real facts. So what is really going on today with climate politics all over the world? And in fact, my vision is that there are at least three very difficult, formidable problems that transition is facing today in the world. The first one has to do with the narrative. Perhaps all of us, we are convinced of what I shared today. But this is not the dominant narrative. There's a dominant narrative which is still saying that it's not possible to live without fossil fuels, that it's not possible to deal with climate, with the variability of wind and solar and variable sources, that if you use batteries, this becomes more expensive. This is not true, but this is the dominant narrative. And the second point is that there are strong market distortions in our economies. This is the global direct subsidy to fossil fuels. We don't talk that much about this crucial aspect. Fossil fuels are subsidized all over the world, and subsidies can be as high as $1.4 trillion per year. And at the same time, where renewable technology were decreasing cost, at the same time, subsidies to fossil fuels were increasing by a factor of 3 in only 8 years. And this is not IRENA, this is not Greenpeace, this is not E3G which is saying that. It is the International Monetary Fund. Because the International Monetary Fund is very worried because of the fact that if we add direct plus indirect subsidies to fossil fuels, this is about $7 trillion per year. This is 7% of the world GDP. This means that 7% of all the wealth we are generating every year, 7% goes to subsidize one specific sector of our economy. That's why the IMF is so worried about that. And beyond just these two things, beyond the fact that we are having a dominant narrative and the markets are completely distorted, there's a third formidable problem, which is the fact that, in fact, we are using inadequate rules of the game for renewables. The rules of the game has been built according to the characteristic of fossil fuel, and that's fine because they were the winners till a short time ago. But today what is happening is that we're asking renewables to compete with inadequate rules of the game, and those rules of the game has been done specifically to favor fossil fuels. What you are doing today with renewables is like taking the best, but then when he comes, instead of giving him a football ball, we are giving him a tennis racket and put it in a tennis court. This is what we are doing. And no matter which is the best that you're choosing, no matter who it is, it's the same. The point is that renewables cannot deliver because today what is happening is that the influence of incumbents, the influence of fossil fuel stakeholders is too strong. That's why we have all these formidable barriers. And that's why, I mean, just because it's cheaper doesn't mean that transition is going to happen spontaneously. So in fact, what can we do? What can we do in this context? And please let me go back a little bit to Uruguay and to understand what were the real reason, the key success in the Uruguay case. And in fact, I can organize this in only two of them. The first one is the fact that we understood that we needed sustained public policies and stable public policies in order to make it possible. So first of all, we built a new narrative which was based in real facts of the benefits that the transition can have to our own national interest. And the second is that with that, based in this new narrative, we built a political agreement that was backed by the entire Uruguayan political system. And we have witnessing this transition and the continuity of these policies from different governments going from right to left and left to right, and over many governments we continue in the same direction because it was the best for our own interest, no matter what the constituency votes. And third point is that, in fact, there was a very strong government leadership working hand with the private sector, but in order to build the transformative ecosystem for the new economy to get ready. And precisely the second and most important point is that it's not only a political decision. We need to make changes for the new economy to emerge. And for that, we had to make technical changes in the way we plan the system, in the way we operate the system, but also changes in the market design. We deeply redefined the market design, going from the traditional short-term energy market to long-term capacity market. We changed everything, and this attracted billions of dollars. In fact, in Uruguay, we received in only 5 years, 6 billion euros. 5 billion euros, $6 billion. And this is about 12% of the GDP of the country. It has a tremendous a tremendous attraction. It's a global south country that, creating the appropriate conditions, succeeded to attract all the investment needed in order to make a rapid change. So what should our action plan be? And just to finish, first of all, we need to talk a new driver. I'm a climate man. I'm the chief negotiator of the Paris Agreement for my country. But I never talk about climate. I've talked in their language. Economy, resilience, stability, so all the issues that really matters to politicians now, which are the real facts for today. And with that, we need to create a new narrative. We cannot accept the old narrative that this was not possible. Yes, now it's possible and it's better. And with that, create a long-term political agreement. Long-term political agreements are crucial. Many countries are worried because there is a concentration of raw materials and supply chains, but those countries have those concentrations, they have long-term policies. We need to have long-term policies that are backed by the entire political system, based on the real facts that these new technologies are about development, not just about climate change. Development in the global sense. We are all development countries because we have to all to develop a new economy. But after that, of course, we have to remove all the barriers that we have today in order to make it possible for the new economy to emerge. And last but not least, for that, we need strong political leadership with new, broad and diversified alliances in order to make it possible all over the world. So my message is, it's no longer time for having political targets. It's implementation time. And this is what we're doing with both my organization and which is EVI, which are sharing these experiences to other countries of the Global South and through the global network I chair, which is REN 21. So thank you very much.